Who are you? The voice asked. Tim stood there, still resting his head against the door. Who could possibly be at this building, in this forest, at this hour? And more importantly, why? He spun around to see who had spoken to him. Two figures stood, their curious eyes fixated on him as he looked between the duo. The first was a teenage boy who stared up at Tim, his head tilted to the side, one eyebrow raised. Yeah, who are you? Though the kid's expression was calm, his hands seemed to twitch beneath the pockets of his black hoodie. He has something, Tim thought to himself. The teen looked Tim up and down, especially around the shoulders. You look a little roughed up there, buddy. What happened out there? Tim scratched the back of his head. Don't worry about it for now. He then switched his attention over to the woman. She looked extremely bothered about something. Her eyes darted around wildly from time to time, as if she expected something to pop up at any moment. Tim could immediately tell she was a bit of a mess. Her blonde hair looked very unkempt, and her clothing was quite filthy looking too. She pulled on the sleeves of her sweater, biting on her bottom lip as she spoke. Are you trapped here too? She asked. Tim took a moment to take in his surroundings. The large room that the trio stood in felt so familiar to him. The large stairs, wood floor, blue walls, it all felt so comforting to him, save for the two strangers standing in the middle of it. He then remembered the woman's question. Well, the thing is, Everyone jolted as something hard slammed against the front door. Tim quickly spun on his heel, jolting in surprise once more as a man suddenly burst through the door before shutting it tight behind him. Marcus? Tim exclaimed. You found me much quicker than I expected. What? No time for pleasantries. We need to move now. Marcus yelled out, grabbing Tim by the hood of his parka and dragging him up the stairs. His attention was momentarily on the two strangers before he focused once again on moving up the staircase. You two follow behind us now, unless you want to be killed. Got it? The duo nodded before following after him. Hey, what's the rush for? Tim asked. Another slam sounded at the door. There's two of them. Now move it. The group quickly fled down a nearby hall as the sound of wood splintering and cracking came from the front door. Oh man, not the dang door, Tim complained. He felt a slight shudder ripple through his body as a low howl reverberated across the hall. Tim followed after Marcus as he turned another corner. The sound of those creatures' heavy footfalls seemed to follow behind as they moved. Marcus turned again and the group followed after him. Tim continued to force himself to push forward despite the aching pain in his shoulders. Though it wasn't as bad as before when he was first attacked, it was still bothersome. He was so focused on running that he hadn't even noticed that Marcus had pulled one of the doors open until the man had grabbed a hold of him before practically tossing him into the room. The two strangers followed close behind, and once everyone was in, Marcus slit the door shut before raising a finger to his lips, gesturing for everyone to stay silent. Tim's green gaze was fixated on the door, his eyes narrowing as a low growl emanated from far off in the distance. He began to wonder whether or not if they'd be found. They waited for a while. Everything was silent. After some time, Marcus let out a heavy sigh of relief. I think we're good, for now, he muttered. He turned to look at Tim. I told you I'd come to find you. He switched his attention to the strangers. So who are the two bystanders? He asked. The teenager stood, leaning against the dresser. He switched his blue eyes from the window to Marcus as he spoke. Name's Daniel. Marcus stared at him for a moment before looking over to the woman who was huddled in the corner of the room. And who is she? He asked. Daniel flicked his eyes over to the woman before returning them back to Marcus. Angela, I think anyway. She hasn't spoken too much. He shrugged his shoulders. Don't ask. I do not understand. Marcus furrowed his brow. Why are you even here, anyway? There, Daniel answered immediately. He pushed himself off the dresser. I was paid about $200 to spend the night here is all. A lot of rumors around these parts. Marcus shook his head. Of course. He took in a deep breath. Alright, we'll deal with this later. For now, he turned to look at Tim. We need to go find that thing. Tim drew his lips back. No offense, boss, but I think we should leave. Come back with reinforcements? Marcus put two fingers up to his temples. While that would be the preferred option, we kind of can't, he said. That thing will cause more trouble if we leave. Not to mention your little problem. He glared up at Tim. Don't think I'm unaware of that little hunger you have. Tim smirked a little. As much as he couldn't stand working with Marcus at times, he had to admit the guy was correct, as well as interesting. Tim shrugged. All right, we can get moving then. He whipped out a comb designed to look like a pocket knife before running it through his white hair, spiking it back up. He then put the comb away. All right, ready when you are, I guess, he said, looking up at Marcus, who glared back. I'm sure we'll get one of the werewolves this time. Wait, the rumors are true? There really is some kind of wolfman creature lurking about these woods? Daniel asked, his expression calm but curious as he looked between the duo. Tim brought his gloved hand up to his chin in a thinking gesture. I mean, I guess... Marcus rolled his eyes. Oh my gosh, yes, if there are any stories you've heard about a midnight blue-furred werewolf, wolfman, whatever you want to call it, roaming around the forest, it's true. Now come on, let's get going. We have no time to waste. The group crept down the hall, Marcus in the lead. Tim watched from the back, his green eyes looking across every inch of the gray walls. He knew that at any moment, one of those things could pop up out of nowhere and attack, and he wanted to be ready. Everyone paused as Marcus suddenly raised a hand, signaling for the group to halt. He listened closely before peeking his head around the corner. It's colder here, Angela muttered, rubbing her hands across her arms as she spoke. Tim's gaze drifted lazily around the hall. She was right. It was a bit more frigid here. Ah, great, he thought to himself. He wondered why on earth everything had to take place here. Literally anywhere else would have been fine, he thought to himself. But no, it just had to be here, right in my... His thoughts were cut off as a sudden crash sounded just ahead. He looked up to see Marcus ducking down as a large humanoid wolf with midnight blue fur swiped out at him. My God, that thing's huge, Daniel shouted as Tim rushed forward. As Tim approached, the beast tackled Marcus to the ground, bits of frost falling from its fur as it bit into the man's shoulder. Ah, damn son of a... Marcus yelled out. As Tim approached, he withdrew the golden blade he had in his belt. The moment he reached the werewolf, he thrust the blade into the thing's side, causing it to let out a howl of pain. The werewolf turned its bright blue eyes on Tim, letting out a low growl. Tim quickly ducked as it snapped its jaw shut right where his head used to be. He stabbed it again, this time in the chest as he shoved it back. The werewolf stumbled, but only for a moment before it quickly recovered and lunged at Tim. Tim stood in stunned silence as the wolf's head suddenly split open with a sickening crack. He turned to see Marcus, his pistol pointed right where the thing once stood. Bits of smoke rose from the barrel of his pistol as he stood there. He lowered his weapon, clutching a hold of his bloody shoulder while breathing heavily. "Okay, I don't remember the bullets doing that much damage," Tim said. Marcus scoffed. "Ugh, of course they do. They're blessed. If you'd actually stopped and taken a moment to pay attention to your job, you'd know that." "So, is it really dead?" Daniel asked. Tim's attention switched over to the teen, who looked down at the body, his expression like that of someone with calm concern. "This isn't real. This can't be real," Angela exclaimed. "I'm still drugged, aren't I?" Get a hold of yourself." Marcus groaned in pain. "We need to get moving. There's still one more." Just then, a loud crash sounded down the hall, loud barks of frustration coming with it. "Okay, looks like the cavalry's here," Tim said. He pointed at Daniel and Angela. "Okay, you two, get moving quickly." At once, the duo rushed forward and past Tim, Marcus following just behind them. Tim waited there for a moment, watching them go. He flipped his gaze over to the corpse lying on the ground and sneered. Terrible timing." He slid a gloved hand across the gold blade of his knife, cleaning it off. He stared down at the crimson liquid that now coated his appendage before bringing his hand up to his mouth. "It isn't much, but it'll do."